And I was just reading about this. I'm not an expert in UFOs, and I don't really want to be considered one. It's sort of an academic suicide sort of thing. You know, you say, "Oh, I believe in UFOs," and then all of a sudden it's a very questionable field, and most of the apparent UFO sightings can be deconvolved to find that they were just ordinary things. But there is a small handful of them that can't be explained well. But UFOs are it's an interesting field. It's kind of like Bigfoot in a way. There's a lot of kind of quackery out there, and to filter through all that is a challenge to find what's really there. What real evidence we have. I mean, it's possible we could be being observed by beings from other worlds. That seems quite plausible to me, but the arguments against that are that it's just the distance between stars is insanely huge. It's just depressingly far to stars, and what's the likelihood that they're really visiting us? And then what comes into play is this Occam's razor, which says that the most likely explanation is the simplest one. And the simplest explanation is, no, it's not, beings from insanely distant places. There's probably a simpler explanation. What I find intriguing is that numerous credible pilots have seen these things. They've identified them on radar. They have these visual encounters, and they say it's a vehicle. So, and it's something that moves way faster than any technology that's even close to what people have right now. And so, Occam's razor that says the simplest explanation, you might say, is not aliens. But if there is incredibly amazing technology, and these things like go from 0 to Mach whatever in no time, they turn on a dime, sorts of accelerations that would kill humans instantly. If that kind of technology is really being observed, then to me Occam's razor seems to indicate, well, maybe it's not that unlikely that it's, because if the technology exists and they're really observing these things, and they're way beyond what people have currently on the Earth, then you have two questions. And one of them is, well, is there some sort of mysterious organization that has insanely advanced technology that we don't know about? That seems rather unlikely. Or is it the very unlikely, possibility that we're being visited by aliens? So I think if the technology really exists, then Occam's razor almost makes you go, well, maybe we are being visited. How would they find us? Well, I mean, if there are aliens that are able to, that have mastered, interstellar flight, they would have to, as we understand, with physics as we understand it, they would have to travel for, with an incredible amount of energy, something beyond what we're able to do to approach the speed of light, and then their time would be distorted, and they would be, it would be conceivable that we could be visited by beings from all the way across the galaxy, but their time, according to Einstein, would be distorted relative to ours. But how do they get to the incredible speeds necessary for time distortion and approaching the speed of light? That's completely unknown at this point. Some years ago, it was like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago or something, the astronomy club invited me to come talk to them because there was a pilot of a Learjet, I think for AG headquarters, that was flying from the west coast toward the east, and he described what happened. He was cleared. He had to go up to 40,000 feet, and then he saw this thing, this very bright thing in the distance, and it was moving, kind of drifting, and then some other pilots saw it also, and they were like Northwest Airlines pilots, I think. So he and his co-pilot and these other pilots saw it. They saw it moving, and it was definitely something moving through space relative to them, and then it suddenly just shot off to the horizon faster than any human-made thing could conceivably travel, so that was fascinating. What my PhD advisor at Caltech said when I told him about that, he goes, well, that's exactly the sort of thing that optical effects do. I mean, things that seem to move really fast, like the glare in your car window, you know, sometimes it'll just, depending on the orientation relative to the source of light, some optical phenomenon that looks like an object, but actually is just a trick played by the light. If they're visiting us, I don't think they're going to land on the White House lawn. You know, we're like a zoo. You know, like show up, but you know, be careful. See, here's where mainstream science mostly agrees. We now know that there are planets around virtually every star, and there are Earth-like planets orbiting these stars. And when I was in college, we didn't even know if there were planets around stars commonly. We suspected it probably, but nobody knew, and they're very hard to detect. But in recent years, in the last 2 decades or so, we've begun to detect planets orbiting other stars, and now we know that most stars have planets, and that there are a lot of Earth-like planets. So that seems to bring up, you know, increase one of the factors that we didn't know about before, which is, you know, how many intelligent civilizations would there be in a galaxy? And there's an equation called the Drake equation that you multiply all these factors together, and then it predicts how many intelligent civilizations there are in the galaxy. One of the factors is how many stars have planets that are Earth-like. And now we know they're very common. In fact, the very closest star, Proxima Centauri, the very closest star has an Earth-like planet, which is really cool. So yeah, most scientists, at least the ones I know, would say chances are enormous that there's life on other worlds, because there's countless worlds, just an immense number of worlds. Why would our world be the only one that has anything on it? But it might be, because we don't understand how life began. And you know, I'm both a person of faith and of science, and I don't think that we understand. We don't understand how it all really began. That's natural processes bringing about life. I think that's also can be the hand of God. I don't see those as conflicting, but there's so much that could be said. If there's all these stars and all these planets out there, and we're the only one with life on it, it seems like an awful waste of space.